Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? And today, oh my goodness, we have another special guest. Today, I'm getting to talk to Leah Swanson. Leah is the executive director for LLS. That is the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. That's of the Red River region in North Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. I got introduced to you, Leah, by Yvonne Freeman, who actually is a former guest back in episode 15. I'm so excited to have you on. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Isn't it cool whenever we're like connected with different people that we know, and then all of a sudden we meet, we're like, hey, what a great connection. I can't wait to get into this conversation. Where did you meet Yvonne at?
Well, actually, through Builders First Source, where she
Yeah.
works. It's a great company supporting Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So her and Amy Messersmith, who I know is also a guest, they're both volunteers and wonderful supporters of the mission.
Amy Messersmith, absolutely. She is another former guest, and so yeah, no, this is great. Hey, as we get started here, I always like to kick off the show by having our guests share a little bit about the organization. And for you, LLS, I would love for you to share a little bit about LLS and how you serve your customers.
I would love to. It's my favorite topic. So, we have been around for, 74 years. So we were actually started by a family that lost their 16-year-old son to leukemia. So I like to say it's a family first organization, working with, patients and helping, patients along the way. But really we have three pillars. So research is huge. We've committed over $1.6 billion to research. We have a Dare to Dream project, which is really focused on advancing pediatric new cures for children, which I know we'll talk about a little bit later. But we also support our patients. So, just here in DFW, we had over $9 million last year go back to supporting patients and making sure that they can focus on their treatment, not how they're going to afford it, and just really making sure everybody has the same access to care. So that's really just a little bit. And then advocacy is, of course, just making sure that we're getting the most money towards, advancing cancer research and finding a cure to cancer.
I love that. If you right now, I'm telling you, this is going to be a fantastic show. Get out your pen, get out your journal. I wrote down research, patient support, advocacy. That's fantastic. And anytime someone shares something like family first organization, I always think immediately, hey, this is a mission driven organization. How cool does it work for LLS?
Well, it's amazing, frankly. And, just thinking about impact, I'm a person who I like to see progress. And so, really looking at the impact that LLS has made every day. I mean, I feel like I make a difference, but it's also just being able to see, even though we're not there yet and we have a long way to go, it's amazing to be able to see, helping patients to put, keep their lights on while they can go through treatment. We put brakes on someone's car, so now he's getting treatment and he wasn't able to, before. And just seeing the advancements in research, it's truly amazing. It definitely has its hard days. It's not all fun and games, but truly, it's something that I wake up every day and I couldn't imagine myself anywhere else.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Hey, I do want to talk about LLS and all the amazing things you're doing. But before we do that, I would love for people to get to know a little bit more about Leah Swanson. I would love to hear the Leah Swanson story. Where did you grow up and how in the world did you get to where you are today?
Oh goodness. Well, I actually grew up in South Florida. So I'm a native originally Floridian. So I was born in South Florida. My father was a professional tennis player when I was little. He started a tennis academy, and we actually had kids from all over the world that came and lived with us. I can remember telling my parents telling me, guess what? We have a girl coming to stay with us and we don't have a roommate for her. So she's going to be living in your bedroom. And she didn't speak English. So we got out the little book and had to translate to each other. But that was pretty much my upbringing. We had, just very much focused around tennis and sports. And then I moved to Texas in '06, but actually taking a step back, I started working when I was 12. So I worked at my parents' tennis academy, and 15 years old, maybe 16, I decided I didn't want to work for them anymore. And I started selling sunglasses and became President's 100 Club in the first year. I won all the sales competitions. So then that's when I realized that I was super competitive and I like to be the best at whatever I did. And I kind of had that sales aspect for a long time. So started a few sales roles right out of college and wasn't happy. Originally wanted to be a NICU nurse. So that was kind of where my heart was along the way. And then I realized that I probably was a little bit too emotional to be a NICU nurse. So it started, found a nonprofit about 24 years ago, and really kind of figured that was a great way to connect with people and have relationships with people, but also be able to make a difference in the world. So that's kind of how I found nonprofit, and really where I've been ever since.
I love that. Did I see one of the things I enjoy about doing the podcast is I get to do some, it kind of makes me do some research, right? And so I saw on your LinkedIn profile you went to FAU, correct? Is that the team that just like went like very far in like the Final Four?
Yeah.
FAU? Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
go Owls. But when I went there, they didn't even have sports. So they didn't have a football team. They didn't have
That,
a football team. I can't remember if they had a basketball team or not, but I know for sure they didn't have a football team. But yeah, go Owls.
that's fantastic. Oh my goodness. Hey, well, I do before we get into this, I want to something that you said and I love that. Like your father was a tennis pro. That is
Mhm.
fantastic. But you talked about you went to work when you were 12, for your parents' tennis academy. I remember that's about the age I went to work. My mother and father had bowling centers, and they still have a
Oh,
bowling center today. And we were all as kids working. We were 12 years old working at the bowling alley. And then later I decided I didn't want to do that either. And so I moved
right.
on. So I love that. Hey, man, this is fantastic. I would love to ask you this question though, because you said, hey, I found out early I was pretty good in sales. I was super competitive. And then you got into nonprofit. Has there been a moment when you just like there was a button or light that went off, or when you said, hey, I found my lane. I really, really love what I do.
I was fortunate enough at a prior organization to really, do several different roles, meet lots of different volunteers, have lots of different, managers and get to see different people, who led in different ways. And I mean, I honestly feel like when I came to Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, which is about 4.5 years ago,
Hmm.
I just felt like everything really clicked. I have, a lot of cancer in my family and really just feel like that mission, that personal connection. So things have clicked along the way, but I really just, as soon as I landed here, I really just felt like this is where I'm meant to be.
I love that. When I talk to guests on the show, we talk a lot about purpose, and when you find your purpose, when you find your calling, and it seems to all circle around that helping others. You know,
Mhm.
and so I love that. Hey, and before we get into talking about LLS, I would like to ask you one other question. That is, on your journey, it seems to me like, here you are, you're the executive director. It seems to me like people that are making impact, people that are in leadership roles, they've had people that have like come alongside of them. I call them mentors, but people that helped them along the way. Was there anybody that helped you along the way? And if there were, what was a couple of things that stood out?
I wish I could say there's just one, but I feel like there's,
Mm,
there's definitely several people that come to mind. I mean, I definitely have to just even go back to my parents, and I would say that I have my work ethic from my dad.
mm.
So many wonderful things from my mom. Probably about helping others really kind of came from my mom, but kind of in the career, mentors. I had one manager that kept kind of pushing me to the next role, and I was like, no, I'm super happy here. I'm good. I really like what I'm doing. And she was like, well, you're never really ready. Nobody's ever really ready. You just have to take that next step. So I would, say one of my first managers in nonprofit, he was a ex-football player, super passionate, professional speaker now. And I kind of think I learned my passion from him. I learned accountability and, kind of getting myself out of my comfort zone from someone else. And so I guess I've been lucky to have more than just one, but I've kind of learned something from a few of them.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love all of that. Well, let's talk about LLS. You've been with the organization you mentioned for almost 5 years. Talk a little bit about what you enjoy most about LLS.
I think working, you mentioned before, just, helping others. And I think that, really I get to be surrounded every day by people that, for the most part, want to make a difference. It's easy enough in this world to get, kind of around negative people, but in my role, I mean, I have people that have been through so much. So there's certainly people that have been through heartache. But at the end of the day, everybody has a common goal of wanting to make a difference and really ultimately wanting to cure cancer. So I would say working with volunteers and just building relationships with people. I also love connecting. So, Yvonne introducing me to you, and then she's introduced me to others, and then you've introduced me to people. So I think just building relationships and connecting people is what, kind of what gets me excited every day.
That's so cool. I'll give you another shout out, Lynn Stewart, who's also been on the show. She just raves about you, and ever since she's connected with you. Hey, there's one thing that, whenever I talk to different people in organizations that are really serving the community, they seem to have, I don't know, they seem to have stories that really impact them. And it's really why they are really driving or part of this movement. Have there been any stories in the last 5 years that have impacted you that you find yourself, I don't know, sharing with others?
So many of them. I mean, truly, I would say I keep a box of Kleenexes next to my desk or in my purse because I feel like I make such connections with people and I feel like what they're going through, and I think just we work with a lot of really busy people too. So you said something earlier that reminded me of this, but there was someone that was really, we asked her to take a leadership role and she was really like, gosh, I'm so busy. This is the worst time at work. We've got so much going on. And she came back to me and she said she got the advice that, there's always time to be busy. But doing something that really matters, you have to carve out time for that. So some of the people that I work with are probably the busiest people that, I've ever met. But yet they still, kind of carve out that time to make a difference and to help others. So I think I do my best to make sure we limit that time, knowing that, that's not their job and they're doing this to, to really make an impact. But there's one story, there's so many of them. I hate when kids relapse and it happens all the time. That breaks my heart. I share those stories, but there's one, we received a donation in the mail back in 2020, I guess. And I sent, made a phone call, sent an email, just thanking them for their donation and asked them what inspired them to make that gift. And I just received a 1-sentence email back that just said, "My daughter's very ill. I'll be back in touch." And so that just kind of didn't sit well with me. I wanted to know, how old is his daughter? What was she diagnosed with? And so just, every few weeks or, a couple months later, I sent another message saying, "I'm really thinking about your daughter. Would love to learn a little bit more when you have time, but just know that my thoughts are with you." And a few months later, I got another email that he had lost his daughter. And probably a month after he lost his 21-year-old daughter, she had just graduated and was landed her dream job and, was diagnosed with leukemia and passed away. And so, a month later, met him and his wife in the midst of COVID, and they wanted to dive in, and the whole family dove in, and they've been super involved ever since. And so there's really nothing I can't ask that he won't jump in and help. And so, people that take their heartache and don't even really take the full time to, to process, but just said, "You know what, she fought, and now we're going to fight for her." So I would say that's probably one of the stories that drives me every day. But it's just, I don't know, I guess it's one of those that I talked about forever until I really found out what happened. And now just to see someone that, has been through so much that the whole family dove in to make a difference for someone else's family, that inspires me.
I talked about purpose earlier, and you sharing that story, it's just like multiplies that 10 times the purpose that you have and all the people involved in the organization has. When we met for coffee, and I remember sharing you a little bit a story about my niece and my connection to Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And it was my younger brother. I remember we were coaching baseball. And it was back in, I think it was around 2000. I want to say it was 2003 is when this happened. And we were in the baseball tournament, like everybody's excited, And I remember my brother telling me he's not going to be able to be at the game because they just, found the white cell count high on his daughter, and who was, I think she was 8 at the time. And then she, of course, had leukemia, and I got to watch that journey that he went on and just be a part of that. And so whenever we met, I had this like instant connection. So I went like, "Hey, you know what? it's time for me to, you said it best. You said that an executive said there's always time to be busy. I'm like, we're all busy, right? But
That's right.
when I met you, I was like, I gotta find time to carve out for this and try to see if there's some areas where I can help. And so I appreciate you sharing
I'm
that.
so
I know
grateful.
that people listening that are connected are going to really resonate with that. I recently saw LLS has many events across the U.S. and I don't know, I'd say millions of participants.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about 2023, because I wanted to get you on today for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted people to know who you are, Leah. You're amazing. But I wanted them to learn a little bit more about LLS, and maybe there's an area where, you know what, they may not have knew what was going on. I'd love for you to share what's going on in 2023.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. And thank you for volunteering your time, Bruce. I'm super excited to work with you. You know, I would say that Leukemia and Lymphoma Society sometimes is the best kept secret, and that's not a great thing for organizations. We are very frugal with how we spend our money, putting our money back to the mission. So just having that volunteer network and being able to get people out at events like Light the Night and bringing it back to their companies and their employers, that's really the way that we get the word out. So patients know that we're here to help. So we offer so many different services, which, you know, I'd love to mention just a few of those. You
Okay.
know, really just, I mentioned the financial part of it and just helping patients financially. But we have everything from the day that someone's diagnosed. We want to be there from day one to help them emotionally. We have free nutrition counseling. We have peer match where, you know, you've been diagnosed with something. Let's connect you with someone who's on the other side of treatment that has been diagnosed with the same thing. You know, I mentioned research, but we have, you know, access to clinical trials. We have what we call an information resource center where people answer the phone from 9 to 9. It might, you know, I don't want them to be dissuaded from the 800 number, but it's a live person that answers the phone. The second that you call, you're sent information about your diagnosis, how to manage finances, how to manage stress. I mean, so truly, there's so many different resources that we offer, but a lot of people hear about those resources when they're connected, you know, to an event. So just like you hadn't mentioned your niece in a lot, you know, it's been years since she's been, you know, treated and is doing well, thank goodness. But you don't really know that connection that people have until you start to talk about it. So Light the Night is one of those events for the fall for us. It's a community event. It's a free event. So it's one of our largest events. And you can see in the background of my Zoom, you know, really just that kind of that celebration. So even though we are a blood cancer organization, we are, you know, on a mission to cure all cancer. Many of the blood cancer treatments are actually, you know, being used now on breast cancer, bone cancer, you know, even things like rheumatoid arthritis. So if you're a survivor, you're going to be carrying a white lantern. If you're, you know, in supportive, you'll be carrying a red lantern, and in honor of, you'll be carrying a gold lantern. But Light the Night is coming up in the fall, in November. We also have events like Big Climb, which is, you know, running up the stairs. If you're athletic, we have marathons, bike races. We have all sorts of different events. So there's really something for everybody. But our largest community event is coming up November 4th in Dallas, and that's called Light the Night. So would love to get everybody involved.
Okay, save the date, November the 4th. I want you to write that down, put that in your calendar. Okay, I want to just real quick go back. The different
Yep.
colored balloons. I don't want people
Yep.
to miss this. Whenever they
Yep.
see the different colored balloons, talk about that. The white is the survivor. Is that right?
Yep. Survivors and patients.
Okay, survivors and
Yep.
patients. And what's the next color?
So red is in supportive. So if you're just, you know, you want to see an end to cancer, which everybody does, and then gold is if you've lost somebody. So again, it's any type of cancer. So if you're a breast cancer survivor, you're going to be carrying a white. And so the cool thing, it is a night event. And it's a lantern. They have a little battery operated, so they light up. So we wait for the sun to drop, and then we tell a story that represents each lantern color. And then we light the lanterns. The beautiful thing about it is all the white lanterns go into, and so I kind of see in the background there, but
Yep.
there's flags, survivor flags. All the survivors and patients go into the middle. Everybody surrounds them, and then a big beam of light goes up into the sky, really just representing that hope for those patients and letting them know that they're not alone in the journey. And then it's a brisk walk. It's less than a mile, and people are out there with their strollers. It's not, I like to say it's not an endurance event. It's kind of like a festival. It's a lot of fun. Companies are out there bringing their employers, bringing their friends. So just a great opportunity to gather together.
So how would they get involved in that? Would they go to, was there a website?
Yep. So, if you just, search Light the Night Dallas, there's a place to, to sign up. You can sign up as a company, your company team. You can sign up under a friends and family team.
Mm.
We also have on May 17th, we have kind of an executive launch for, so, if
Mm.
you want to find out how to get your company involved, definitely reach out. I can give my email address. It's just leah.swanson, just the way it sounds, at lls.org. But would love to see, some representatives from companies come out, and you can figure out how to get your company involved. The cancer, cost of cancer in the workplace is crazy, but it's a great opportunity for breakfast and networking as well. And that's May 17th.
Yeah, that's great. I will put your information in the show notes so people listening can just click on that link and get access to the information right away. Hey, I was also reading, you had given me a really neat brochure on the organization. And there was also a Dare to Dream project mentioned in there. I would love for you to share a little bit, because when I hear Dare to Dream, it just sounds big, right?
Yeah.
And so share
Yeah.
a little bit about Dare to Dream project. What's that all about?
Yeah, it is. It is really big. It's our project. So right now, children, leukemia is the most common form of cancer in children. And children are being treated with adult drugs because there's just not enough advancing and money going towards pediatric drugs. So LLS is one of a kind global efforts to find new drugs for children. And in the next couple years, we want to be treating children as children. So right now, many of our children are having 80% of them actually are having lasting chronic side effects because of the toxic chemo and radiation that they went through. So their little bodies just can't handle it. We have 200 clinical sites opening. I think we have about, the number changes daily, but we have about 35 clinical trial sites open right now. And we will find new treatments and safer treatments so children can not just survive cancer, but thrive after it. So I think I told you when we met that it is one of the things that gets me, out of bed every morning. We need to do better for our kids.
I love that. That's what drives you every day. This is great. And as a matter of fact, I was sharing that story earlier. My niece's name is Summer, and after we had coffee, I called her and I said, "Hey, we need to get together and talk, because I want to like start sharing your journey, just to encourage anyone, right? To either like we talked about before, to volunteer, to support, just some way, just get involved in some way." So speaking of that, I do want to ask, for people that are listening or maybe watching, and they say, "Hey, you know what? I heard what you said. I've got the date circled down for the Light the Night event coming up. What is how can I get involved in some way if I decide, hey, I am going to carve out some time? What would be, I don't know, maybe a couple of ways to get involved?"
So there's something for everybody. So people can participate as an individual, they can participate in fundraise, they can get their company involved, they can get a company sponsorship. If someone wants to, make a lasting mission gift, if they're interested in supporting Dare to Dream, if they want to leave a legacy gift, if they want to put, a small part or a big part to, LLS in their will, they can serve on a committee. We have a committee for Light the Night, which I know that you, Bruce, are serving on. So we have committees for every single campaign that we have. People can also be a mission volunteer and talk to patients. So truly, there is something for everyone. I would love to meet and talk to anybody and just figure out how we can get them plugged in and what they're passionate about, and then we'll figure out what the right spot is. But again, Light the Night's just an easy way, first time event, especially for people. I would say that 90% of the people that've done it once come back again. It's really easy because it's such a great event. So, but there is something for everybody here at LLS, and would love to get everybody involved, or at least have that conversation.
I love how you shared how you can get involved as an individual, or you know what, maybe this is a team building activity that you say, hey, you know what, let's get together and let's show, what we can do as an organization. So there's lots of different ways. And again, I'll put the link in the show notes, and I'm so grateful, like, to have this platform to let you share this message for just anyone listening, because I know there's somebody out there right now that has gone through this, and they're like probably very grateful, or there's somebody else who's like, I want to know more. I want to get involved. I want to volunteer some way. And so this has been fantastic. Hey, one of the questions I like to ask I'm going to pivot here just for a second. I like to ask leaders if they've ever been given any advice. It was just so good. They just find themselves sharing that with others. Anything that you find yourself sharing?
I think I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I think that sometimes you're waiting for, to not be as busy, or you're waiting for whether it's the next move for me, like in a career. I was told, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And they're like, you're never going to be ready. Like you just have to leap and do it. So I think just being, kind of fearless and not being afraid of change, embracing it instead of, and just figuring out how you can really embrace that change and learn something new. So I think pushing myself out of my comfort zone, I would say just do it. Just be fearless.
Man, I tell you, I honestly, I have chills right now because I'm like, I know. And you get that feeling, right? That gut feeling like, hey, I know I need to get involved. So I'm just gonna do it. Hey, I want to pivot here to It's Time to Accelerate. Before I do that, I want to ask you, because when I was talking to you, I said, hey, I want to really make sure that I've covered everything that LLS has to offer, or any message we need to get out there to our community. Anything else that maybe you thought about, that you might want to share with others before we pivot here?
You mentioned something that triggered a thought, just getting their company involved. I think there's a way for team building, and there's a way for companies to get involved. But there's an example or a story I thought of. But we had a senior leader that had accepted, kind of a leadership role, and he's like, well, I don't think anybody I know has been affected by leukemia or lymphoma. And by the way, there's like 100 types of blood cancer, so it's not multiple myeloma falls under us as well. But he said, down the road, he said, oh my gosh, I can't believe, once we started talking about it, I can't believe how many people came to us that have been affected. So he had someone who reported directly to him that had lost a son, and he never knew it. So you really just don't know who has been impacted until you start talking about it. And, there's a stat that was just published recently that only 50% of people feel comfortable telling their employer that they have cancer. And just being able to participate in something like this too. I mean, cancer affects every family, and so it's something that everybody can really rally around. So I would say that for me, getting to HR professionals and letting them know all the great resources that we have to offer is a goal of mine. Because when you are going through blood cancer, especially, and you're having a transplant and you have to be out of work for 4 to 6 weeks, they don't have any choice but to tell their employer. And wouldn't it be great if all those employers said, you should contact Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. They're a free resource and can be here for you every step of the way. That's my goal. Obviously we need to raise funds to be able to fuel the mission, but I want to spread that awareness and get people to know who we are so we can be there for them. Nobody should go through cancer alone and not have that, that support.
This is fantastic. And I think a lot of times it's knowing who to contact to get involved. And now everybody's getting to know Leah. And I'm going to put all your information in the show notes so people can connect with you, and hopefully we can just build a even bigger community, because we are truly better together. Hey, I want to shift over to It's Time to Accelerate. I'd like to ask a fun few questions. And again, I wanted my, all of our listeners to learn about my guest. And for you, I would, as a leader, would you rather read a book or listen to an Audible or a podcast?
I feel like all my answers are great. If I'm on the couch or on the beach, I like to read a book. If I'm driving or running in my AirPods, I wanna listen to a podcast.
I love it. I love it. Hey, man, I tell you, great leaders just seem to be grateful leaders. What are you grateful for, Leah?
Everything. Truly, when you get to work in a field like mine, I'm lucky, I'm blessed, but you find yourself being so grateful for everything. So I'm grateful for my family, my daughters. I have 2 amazing daughters, but I'm grateful to be able to wake up and do something that I love every day and being able to make a difference.
So meaningful. I got to tell you, when I early on in my career, I shared this in my first book, that I felt like I had kind of wasted an opportunity. I didn't feel like I was leading that meaningful career. I had some friends that were doing some pretty cool things, whether they were a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer, whatever that was. And I had, started, in the moving business. I left my parents' bowling center and was helping companies relocate talent. But when I started leaning into helping people, really helping people. That really made me feel like, oh man, I have an incredible opportunity. And it became my purpose to really move leaders to change and inspire the workplace. And that's what you're doing. And as you shared that, I'm like, oh man, I'm so grateful, like for everything. I love that. Love that answer. Hey, what about outside of like you? So you work a lot. I know you are an incredible leader, but what about outside of work? What energizes you? Or it could be in work, in the workplace.
I would say work definitely energizes me, and just
Yeah.
connecting with people, I think
Yeah.
that becomes personal as well for me. But I do love to be outside and be active. I like to exercise every day, just get my energy started with a good workout in the morning. I'm a morning person, so you can
Mm,
find me exercising before work and then find me asleep on the couch, late at night because of that. I go all day long. And then, so yeah, I love to be outdoors. And, but I do, even our events, we have so many events, but it's so
yeah.
fun just being around people and connecting with them.
Yeah, we recently had a meeting where I was part of the committee that we talked about, and I was energized just by being around all of the great people that were on that call, and so I get energized that way too. So that's fantastic. Well, hey, here's my final question, and probably one of my favorite questions I like to ask. Leah, 10 years older, she's knocking at your front door, and you're going to go answer that door. What's she going to tell you?
Just live fearlessly, not being afraid of change. I mentioned that before too. And I think with most of my things, looking back over the last, 10 years and moving into different positions, I was scared, and I would just tell myself to like just take a leap of faith
Mm.
and jump, and just to be more fearless. Don't be afraid of that change, and just if your heart's telling you it's the right thing to do, then just jump and do it.
I think there's some people right now listening going, I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that because, the hard things aren't easy, right? But
That's
once
so
you
right.
take the step and you just go for it, you're like, why didn't I do that a long time ago? And so that is a very wise 10 years older Leah Swanson. I appreciate you so much for coming on, sharing your story and a little bit about LLS for this incredible community. And I know that there's going to be some things that you said that are going to be impactful for people. So you mentioned your email address, I think earlier. How are you available on LinkedIn to be connected? What's the best way to connect?
On LinkedIn. I would love for everybody to connect with me. Feel free to reach out and DM me or send me an email. Would love to just, have a conversation, have coffee. Really just most importantly, I'm grateful, honestly, to be on the show today and to be able to spread the awareness. And I hope that there's someone listening that, has been, through something, and they need those resources, or, a family member, a friend. Would love, please just have anybody reach out to me, and definitely want to get people connected into our resources. So LinkedIn me, and email me, whatever works best.
I love that. And when you do reach out to Leah, because you definitely need to be connected, mention that you heard her on Life and Leadership Lane podcast. It creates that connection like instantly. So I appreciate you for coming on the show today, just sharing a lot about this important organization and ways we can all get involved, and just sharing your perspective, and you're definitely driving in the leadership lane. And again, I appreciate you, and I appreciate our friendship, and I can't wait to see where this goes.
Thank you so much. And Bruce, I'm going to ask you to share our IRC number too. So if there's anybody that needs help, support, that IRC number too will connect you directly with a master level senior oncology representative that can help people too. So we'll ask that you share that as well if that works, if anybody needs it.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to
Thank you.
share this episode, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks, Leah.
Thank you so much.